I can't even imagine how painful that is. I can't imagine if me and my partner broke up and then somebody forced me to sit on a stage and watch all of like my most heartfelt moments with him. Are you kidding? Like, are you joking? Like, it was like torture on live television. I don't know. I'm in shock. I'm just in total shock of what they did to her.
I know Jenn has a voice. Frankly, I'm really sick of them asking her to use these skills for her to fight for herself when she should have been held. Hi everyone, I'm Julie, she's Kelly, and we're here to find love. We're back again this week for another Bachelorette recap. Today we're recapping the finale, episode 10 of Jenn's season of The Bachelorette. For those of you who don't know us, we're two dating coaches who analyze the relationship psychology and dating themes in reality TV shows, especially The Bachelor and The Bachelorette. If you're into this kind of stuff, hit the subscribe button to follow along and join the conversation. You can also listen to us in podcast form on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. As always, please feel free to comment as you watch. We love hearing your thoughts and hearing everyone's perspective on the show. If you're listening on podcasts, shoot us a DM on Instagram while you listen. Get cozy, have a cup of tea, and let's get into it.
Jesus Christ, I'm so frustrated. I feel like my brain is like barely functional because I'm so frustrated. I like couldn't even fall asleep last night after watching that finale. I woke up this morning and I was like, just like my brain was just like rerunning how horrible this was. I guess let's recap what happened for those of you who didn't watch. Yeah, I mean, it was just the most horrible ending to a Bachelorette season just ever imaginable. I don't think I've ever seen such a horrible ending to a season. Jenn sends Marcus home. She decides she wants to propose to Devin, and she tells Jesse, and then they cut to the after the final rose scene, and Jenn is just sobbing on the stage, and she is clearly very distraught. Jesse says they won't show the proposal because things have ended between Jenn and Devin. They bring Devin out on the stage, and we learn that apparently Devin started distancing himself from Jenn shortly after the engagement. He changed his mind, stopped loving her. Sounds like he says that he'd never loved her all along, or like all along his feelings weren't real. I don't know. They like kind of disputed that. Jenn said that he said that to her, and then he was like, no, my feelings were real all along. And the whole thing was just so horrible and unsatisfying to watch. But then the thing that really threw it over the edge is then Jesse goes, okay, well, now are you ready to watch your proposal? And you can just see on Jenn's face, no. It was very clear that she didn't want this to happen. And they start running it, and you just see her just completely breaking down, sobbing, watching this proposal. I'm going to be honest, I actually didn't tell you this, Julie. I actually didn't watch it. I fast-forwarded past this scene because it was so clear to me that she didn't want to see it. She didn't want other people to see it. And I just couldn't watch it, actually. I just saw the way that she was breaking down, and I fast-forwarded past it, actually. I couldn't even watch it. And the way that she was crying, it felt like such a violation. I'm just horrified that they did this to her. I'm horrified that this story ended this way. Where are you at?
It was really hard to go to bed last night because I was shocked by the catastrophe on stage. It's nice to see a little bit of messiness on stage because we love seeing human emotions. We see these contained experiments where people are being pushed their limits and being put in these artificial situations. But at the end, there is something, right? There's some kind of happy ending. There's some type of fantasy fulfillment. And Jenn had absolute none of those things. She is our first Asian American lead. This was a lead that me and Kelly are still rooting for. We have championed her love story. We have championed her growth the entire season. To see production treat her that way, and then to see production try to frame the proposal as like this empowering, strong woman archetype of like, you did get something out at the end of this. You found your voice. It's absolutely baffles me. I couldn't fast forward because I was watching on cable. Like, me and my partner were laying next to each other, and it felt so awful to have that picture in picture. There was picture in picture of her literally breaking down on stage watching it. Devin is literally sitting next to her watching her break down. We didn't have to see it. It didn't need to be put online. Jenn didn't have to revisit it for the first time with her ex. Everybody watching, her family in the audience, noting that she's getting like publicly embarrassed. It just felt, it was very icky to watch. I have never seen such flaying on stage before. Like, I think about Rachel Recchia, who we were able to see some shots of her looking extremely steely, very protective in the audience because she experienced that with Tino. But at least in the end of her segment, who was one of her guys? He like went on stage to ask her out. He didn't go anywhere. Avon, he went on stage to ask her out. He whisked her away and Tino was left on stage. We saw that with Becca when she was broken up with Ari on TV and then he proposed to Lauren. Becca got the Bachelorette. Jenn was left sobbing, and then we cut to the Golden Bachelorette preview. This was so dystopian. This was extremely messed up. There was something really disturbing about Jesse just kind of flip-flopping between, you know, obviously like commercializing all of these new projects they have, like the Mormon Wives, which is something that has now been force-fed down my throat through the show. The Golden Bachelorette, which should be this like really sweet love story, feels a little bit tainted to me because of the way that they were pushing it during Jenn's moment. We didn't get an opportunity for her to have like this arc because there is no arc to be found. I felt like how Jesse was just continually pushing, but wasn't it amazing that you found your voice and you were so empowered and you were the first Bachelorette to propose? No, because what you're doing to me on stage, having my ex next to me, who I can't even get in contact with, Kelly, that blew my mind because let's be real, everybody knows it's like HTFL, everybody knows it's in America. Jenn is so out of his league. For her not to be able to get a chance to communicate with this man who should be lucky that she's breathing the same air as him, that has chosen this man to fight for, and she can't even get a text back. Another huge slap in the face. The fear that you and I had about Jenn being the first Asian American lead, we were like, we hope she protects her story, and the show promoted it. They did all of these things where we thought, okay, there's something about it that feels like they're really taking care of our girl. Last night was almost like they had built her on this pedestal and they just ripped it out from her. She fell, and I guess they have the ratings they want. I don't know.
I completely echo everything you just said. I am shocked. I mean, it is actually disturbing to think about everything that Jenn went through, all the BS she had to put up with America, like to be the first Asian American lead, deal with everybody saying she didn't deserve it, deal with everybody questioning her, deal with everybody comparing her to other people, dealing with just all of this attention on her. Yes, there was positivity around it, and there was also a lot of critique, so much that she had to go through, and for the show to go and be, you know, promoting her as the first Asian American lead, as if they like are really going to care about and value and uplift her story, and then to just have her story end in this horrific way of her sobbing on stage, just like completely devastated and broken down, and just abandoned by her fiance, abandoned by the show. The show just like left her out to dry. Like they just, I can't believe, when I think back to how excited you and I were at the start of this season, how excited we were for like all summer, being so excited about Jenn's season, so excited about the first Asian American lead, so excited about seeing her shine as the main character of her story, to have it all end this way. The disrespect that ABC showed to not even give her a satisfying ending, and then to force her to watch that horrible proposal when she clearly didn't want to do it. I mean, I'm aghast. I'm in shock that just happened. I said this to my partner, we were watching it together as well. It felt like the Hunger Games. It was like, I don't know if you've watched the Hunger Games or read the books or whatever, but there's these like horrible scenes that I think are supposed to be based in the Bachelor franchise, by the way, but there's these horrible scenes where they take these kids who are about to like get murdered and murder each other and whatever, and they put them on the stage and get them all dressed up and like ask them all these like painful questions, and it's like everyone is like garishly like cheering about these kids who are about to get murdered, and the host is like, well, it's too bad one of you is gonna have to die, let's move on. And it's like, that is exactly what this felt like. It felt like a dystopian novel, the way Jesse was like, there, you're strong, now let's talk about Joan. It was like, what is this? Like, is this even real? Do you understand how, like, just I can't even fathom what they were thinking to frame it like this. It didn't even feel like a real... And the saddest part is you could see, you know, sometimes people criticize this show as being scripted and as being like everyone is just putting on performances for the TV, but you can tell this was real for Jenn. Like, this was real for her. The way that she was breaking down, the way that she was crying, the pain that came over her face when that proposal scene started to play, the way that she broke down and sobbed, you could see, like, this is her real life. I kept thinking about the fact that proposal, like, the way that she, like, the look on her face when it started to play, you know, engagements are really important to people. I imagine that idea to propose to Devin, she probably had that idea for a while, that she wanted to propose to the person that she wanted to be with for the rest of her life. That was probably an idea that she had in her head as like an inkling of something that she would be interested in doing. She probably had that as something, a moment that she had imagined, that she had, you know, ascribed all of this meaning to, and then to have all of it taken from her, to have it happen and have that moment tainted in this way, and then to have it played back in her face and having her sobbing and crying and just seeing how wrong she was about this person. It just, I can't even imagine how painful that is. I can't imagine if me and my partner broke up and then somebody forced me to sit on a stage and watch all of like my most heartfelt moments with him. Are you kidding? Like, are you joking? Like, it was like torture on live television. I don't know. I'm in shock. I'm just in total shock of what they did to her.
What you said about her being tortured on TV is exactly what it felt like. When Jesse said, you know, we're not going to show the proposal, a part of me was like, okay, thank God. They're not going to show something that it doesn't matter anymore. What matters is their conversation on the live stage. What was so hard is knowing, we've heard the entire season, this is a girl that finds it extremely hard to be emotional. For her to break down on stage like that, this was a person that deeply believed in the process of the show. She believed that the show would take care of her. They believed that the show was tending to her love story. It is now clear that the show cares more about creating turmoil, maximum pain to the contestants to really, I don't know, have a soundbite, to have a popular clip go viral on YouTube. Something, I don't know what it was, but that was not a love story. It was so deeply disturbing to see that Jenn really experiencing the recovery of a breakup. It's only been a month. She's had to do press interviews. She's had to go around America and talk to people and watch the show week after week, not be able to really process it, then have to process it on stage. That was another reason why it felt deeply dissatisfying for everybody to watch. It's not like she came on stage and she was a steely woman who had connected with that pain and confronted it and been like, okay, I've moved on. She's still very much in the process of it. And she's absolutely in it. She is probably still I would say she probably hasn't even touched it, because how much time does this woman really have while the show is still going? She doesn't really have an opportunity to think about what's happened now, because she's watching her and Devin's love story build in real time. A month ago for the show was a month ago when Devin really started to take center stage. So once again, Kelly, you're right. She's watching in real time her and Devin's connection get closer and closer week after week, and then last night was the crescendo, the climax, where she sees the proposal. She's not even processing the breakup. She sees that Devin's on stage, which we'll get to him. We will get to the way that he handled that whole situation. Another thing is, I feel like Kelly and I have been pulling our punches talking about him, because we thought there was a really big opportunity that Jenn was going to choose Devin, and our show is about finding love. If this was a girl that was choosing this man, then we were going to support her choice. Turns out we didn't have to. Like, he absolutely deserved all of the reaming, the critiques that have been lambasted online, that people have been saying about him. We just didn't want to do that to Jenn if this was the man that she was going to stand behind. Just to see him on stage and to see kind of the way that he was handling her too, I was like, this is absolutely not okay. I'm still really mad about how last night went. I feel a little bit of like moral conflict about continuing to support the show, frankly.
It is a slap in the face, first and foremost, and most prominently to Jenn, but it's also a slap in the face to all of us. The way that, the Asian American community rallied around this season to come, show up, support Jenn, support the show. The way that we've, been here talking about it, excited to see her flourish, and to have the show do this to her. It feels like a slap in the face to all of us, just such a stab in the back. It's very hard to think about how to, I don't know how to give airwaves to this show. Literally, it's an existential crisis. Like, I feel like we're on camera right now, but I mean, that's the behind the scenes of it. Like, I'm like confused about how to continue supporting this show. I really am.
I just have to bring up this comment that I've been seeing about a lot online. Like, we have seen people saying Jenn is like immature. She doesn't know how to be in a relationship. I really don't think that Jenn's emotional readiness to be in a relationship means that this is what happens to her at the end of her season. Another thing that I just kind of had a little bit more clarity on was the show, so much of it went wrong before she was the lead. I'm thinking about how she was chosen as the lead after the final rose, so that meant the men were already picked, because that meant she was filming in 2 weeks. I don't know if the men did think that it was going to be Jenn, so it wasn't even being self-selected for her. She went on really raw from Joey, feeling a lot of the media frenzy around maybe Daisy or Maria being the lead, having to deal with that imposter syndrome in real time. And then she is a person that is still learning about herself and getting ensnared in everything happening with the show. Like, we really do need to rally and support her, because she has experienced, I can say this unequivocally and I can say this objectively, I have never seen such a humiliation on stage before. The show usually is able to frame it, and this is speaking to high levels of manipulation, where they can frame it where it's like, look guys, we still did it, we have a happy ending. We didn't see that with Jenn and her season. I saw that she got the Dancing with the Stars gig, but a part of me is like, girl, run. Go to the cabins. Screw this show. Screw this franchise. Just leave it behind you. You don't need it. You don't need it.
In everything that happens to us, we are all trying to make meaning out of it, right? We are always trying to understand the narrative of what has happened to us, understand the narrative, like, why did this happen? Why did all the pieces come together in this way? What is the kind of story that I can tell to myself to make sense of what happened here, that I can tell to other people to make sense of what happened here. And this is something that we actually did talk about throughout this season, because various people were like sharing these like really big, powerful, intense stories about their own past. Some of them felt a little less processed than others, and we've talked about the fact that there is something that is really helpful to processing what has happened to you, when you can not come up with, but understand the story, the full story of it, and kind of where you land at the end, what the lesson is at the end, what you're walking away with at the end. And that creates a sense of peace, satisfaction, grounding, acceptance, the ability to move on, and the ability to kind of integrate that experience and then move on from it. And Jenn, so when you say like, yeah, we do want a happy ending of some sort, it's not that we need them to manipulate blah blah blah, but
Yes.
we do need to see, what was the point of all this? What was the point of all this pain? Where did we land at the end? They didn't do Jenn give her that respect of giving a satisfying ending to her story and giving something for us and her to hold on to of like, what did it all mean? You're right. They attempted to do this like, oh, well, you're such a strong, independent woman. The woman is in pain. When you are suffering like that, you don't want to just hear like, oh, well, you're so strong and empowered. I don't want to be empowered. I want to be in power. There's a difference. Somebody else doesn't need to give me power. I need to be in my own power. And so Jesse's sitting there saying like, no, but you are empowered. Look at all the power that we've given you. Like, no, like she will decide when she is stepping into her own power, and you sitting there trying to put this narrative on her is so shallow. It is so hollow, and it was invalidating, frankly, the pain that she was going through. It was erasing and smoothing over and trying to go over what she was experiencing. And so yes, this is a really complicated thing for the show to handle, and it is their responsibility. It's their responsibility to figure out, like, what does Jenn need from all of this to walk away feeling whole about what has happened to her, and how could they have done this? I don't know how they could have done it worse. Like, I don't know how they could have ever thought that this was the way to wrap up her story, to give her the guise of like, well, are you okay with us showing this? Like, when they clearly were going to show it anyway. And having her break down the way they did, I mean, there was a way to do it, and they didn't do it. I don't know that I have the answers right now as to what this could have looked like, but it definitely shouldn't have looked like this. It definitely should not have looked like this. Send Devin off the stage, have her friends and family there, have her friends and family around and able to come and rally around her. Like, I just kept thinking about the fact that during this scene, she seemed so alone. I literally, after the episode ended, I was literally like, should I go and DM Jenn? No one's taking care of her. I'll go in and take care of her.
Something that you were saying that I really liked was the difference between empowered and empowered. I love that framing because, this is something I'm personally talking about in therapy. That I relate to Jenn in a way where when you're a caretaker, you tend to be the person that can handle a lot of things. That doesn't mean test my strength. And that means when I am vulnerable, this is actually a pet peeve of mine. I don't like it when I'm dealing with something really hard and everybody in my life tells me, but you've gone through worse and you can handle it. I don't want to handle it. I want someone to protect me. That is exactly what I need. And we're talking about production and Jenn as a relationship because it is a relationship. Jenn put her trust and her vulnerability, and she fought for something that did not fight for her. The show absolutely pulled one. I think they were able to operate within her blind spot because she trusted them so deeply that the show had my back. The show could have been handled would be for Jenn to feel like she was in power, for her to have her words matter. When Jesse said, do you want to see the proposal? And she said, do I have a choice? She does have a choice, but she doesn't with the show, and she never did. The show was always choosing for her. They chose A, B, and C, and she would choose B, but all the choices underneath were the same. They didn't give her an opportunity to really have free will and autonomy in what was happening in the process. I would have loved for her to be like, no, this is extremely inappropriate. Scratch that. I don't think she even had to say anything. The show should have seen it and been like, there's no way we can put this woman out on stage and show this. They should have protected her. She doesn't have to say, I need to be protected. They can look at her and know that. Something that you and I have spoken a lot about, Kelly, is, I spoke about this last week of like Devin and Jenn, and I was like, I think an act of love is an act of observation. It's being able to witness somebody and without them even really saying anything, saying, you don't look like you're, like something's up. Tell me what's going on. You know exactly what I'm talking about. When somebody says that to you, it just opens you up. You start crying. You start like, I can't believe you saw me. I can't believe you witnessed me in that moment. That is what Jenn needed for somebody to do. Oh my God, this girl is not well. Production needs to come in and handle it. I know Jenn has a voice. Frankly, I'm really sick of them asking her to use these skills for her to fight for herself when she should have been held.
Yes, women were strong, yes. And also, like, protect us from harm. Like, both of these things need to be happening. Like, yes, Jenn is strong, and also she shouldn't have to be strong in this moment. She shouldn't have to be constantly reaching into herself for the strength and the resilience and the bravery and the right words to say in this moment, blah, 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 blah. Like, she should be able to be vulnerable and be in her emotions and be held with tenderness by this show, by this experience. I mean, I guess as I say that, it's like, I know that that's not something that we can ever expect of this show. I know that this show is just a torture chamber at the end of the day, right? Like, this show, so many
it's been validated
TV
now.
shows, like, they're just a torture chamber, and I don't know why we would ever expect that, but it is the expectation. We expect people to be treated with care. Sue me, like, I want you to care about the people that you put on your fucking show, like. But that's just the truth. And so to see this was just so painful.
Something I was projecting a little bit of is I think of Kelly, who, you know, is my best friend. She's my co-host. She's such a lover girl. I can't imagine if you put yourself in this process and the show flayed you like that on stage. Because, like, they took, you know, hopes and dreams that somebody really had, and they just pulled the rug out from underneath them. That was so painful. It was harder almost that Jenn was invested in the process. I think if she wasn't, she could have been a little bit more self-protective, but she really opened herself up. It's difficult for us to have our thoughts about it. Usually Kelly and I would take notes as we're watching the show because we want to be able to reflect on it in real time. I literally just put down my phone and I was watching the episode and just like, this cannot be happening. I just kept thinking that again and again. This can't be happening. So yeah, that's all I have to say.
I feel like maybe we should take listen to our own advice and take 30 for a second and like take a beat. Guys, leave some comments down below of what you all thought of the finale, just how this was all handled. Clearly we're so distraught over it and so disappointed. Sometimes it's cathartic to just see that we're all in the same place. Thank you for everyone who reached out in the DMs to share your thoughts too. It is meaningful that we're kind of all feeling it together. So feel free to leave your comments down below, and we'll be back in a second with more to share about Devin and Marcus. Good God. We'll get into Devin and his handling of it all. God, I'm so upset.
I know. Let's talk about Devin. Let's talk about the man that she ended up choosing, ended up proposing to. We go into the episode with Devin meeting Jenn's family. Devin is clearly extremely insecure at this point, and as he's talking to Jenn's family, Jenn has said this before during Joey's season, her family's not going to be the warmest people. They're skeptical. They're of a totally different culture. They want to protect Jenn. They're not buying into the process as much as they're waiting for somebody to convince them, and not only convince them, but say the words that they need to kind of like unlock, I trust you with my daughter. I am Vietnamese. I am the daughter of immigrants. I understand what her mom and her aunt and her brother were looking for in the conversation, which is, I love your daughter. I'm going to keep her safe. I'm going to take care of her. Instead, what they heard was, I'm from a family where I don't know how to be in a family. I really love Jenn and I'm looking for your support. Her brother was truly the MVP of the entire episode. He was extremely shrewd, very perceptive. He was able to really tap into all of these men of like, Devin, I can't say that to you because I need to meet the other guy. this is a family that is taking it seriously, just like Jenn is taking it seriously. They're like, if Jenn is in this process and she wants to get engaged, we're treating it like a real engagement. And this harkens back to previous seasons where, you know, we see people going through the routine and maybe the family say, I really support my daughter, so whatever my daughter wants, I will, you know, that's up to you. No, I feel like Jenn's family, especially because they're Vietnamese, they were very much like, this is not something that we know about and we want to tread lightly. I think that would have been a good tone for if Devin was her person, which he's clearly not, for him to have taken of, I need to tread lightly. I want to make sure that they're really comfortable and I want to do what's best for my relationship with her. So we saw that. Then obviously he was very insecure. It didn't feel better after he met the brother, and we got to see a little bit of his mind just kind of being twisted and feeling uncertain. We then move into their final date where they have this really spiritual ceremony where they grab their fear, which, you know, is a rock, and a rock would represent the fear, and they throw it into the ocean, and then they dip themselves into the water to like cleanse themselves. He gives her a jade jewel. They have a really sweet date, and then Jenn proposes to him, and Kelly didn't see this. It was a very sweet proposal. It was very sweet. She said she loved him and that she was going to fight for him and that she chose him and that this was her person. And he did not say a lie, if I'm being totally honest. Like, he got on that stage and he just said, I love you. And then she mostly said a lie. And then he proposed back to her. We find out later that as soon as they left Hawaii, she couldn't get a hold of him. He wasn't being as responsive. He started to feel doubts. He started to feel regretful that he had proposed to Jenn at all. That after they broke up, he followed Maria on Instagram and he went partying with Jeremy, which honestly, Jeremy?
Oh my God. When Jeremy's name was invoked, I was like, I trust no men anymore. I'm done. I just can't.
Dude, like, as I'm even talking about, like, the whole situation and everything that played out, Jenn had no idea. Because Devin is just, you know, you and I had spoken about this last episode. This man was performing. He has been performing. He did want to win, maybe after he won, maybe after Jenn made such a beautiful commitment, which is awesome for her to, like, have really chosen. This man has been feeling insecure, which makes sense because I've been in a polyamorous relationship with two people. Let me make the ultimate commitment and really show that, like, I'm choosing you actively, and then you can choose me, and it's mutual. It's not just you doing it and me receiving it. Such a beautiful act that I feel like as soon as that happened, Devin's face in the proposal, maybe I'm reading into it because of what happened after, it's like his face kind of fell of like, oh, I have her now. Ooh, this is what I want. And it reminded me a little bit of Dale and Claire. Do you remember, like, when Claire was like, I choose you, and Dale was like, okay, I guess I'm proposing to you now. This is no longer a game, huh? There's no longer this insecurity, huh, that's being activated. So, I mean, so much happened between Devin and Jenn that episode. They sit down on the stage. Jenn is just full of contempt for him because she hasn't seen him in a freaking month because he hasn't been able to communicate with her. He's not showing up for her. He was like, you were changing yourself to be with me and I didn't want you to do that. I don't know, like, the whole thing was so confusing. I don't know how to make sense of it. As you guys can clearly see as I'm talking, it was such a 180 every single point. 180 from the date, 180 from the proposal, 180 to, like, what happened after, 180 on the stage where he was like, you were changing yourself. I definitely did follow Maria, but, like, I was broken up with you, so I can do what I need to do. And I was in New York because I saw a client. I mean, Kelly, tell me, like, I'm talking about the details, but take me into the heart of it, because I am just, I don't know where to go. This was such, like, a shit show.
Here's where I land on it. The coldness that Devin showed on that stage when they were sitting there, and she is sobbing. It is raw for her. You can just see it on her face, and you could see it in her tone, the way that the pain is so real to her. And Devin is sitting there just kind of like there's nothing. The care, the lack of care is so evident in their interactions. And you compare this with the whole finale. This is already transpired between Jenn and Devin, and yet when she sat there with just Jesse, when she sat there with Marcus, the way she spoke to Marcus, and Jesse was like, do you think maybe something could have happened with you and Marcus if Marcus had done things differently? And she was like, no, my heart was with someone else. She was, even in that moment when Devin had already done her so wrong, she was still so earnest about the fact that no, she loved him. No, she still was there in that relationship. She still was protecting her story with Devin. She was still protecting Devin's feelings. Even in this moment where she's kind of given the opportunity to like see if there's something with Marcus, she's like, no, my heart is still with this man who I committed myself to. And so for her, like, she is still there, and like she's so in it. And then to see Devin sit there so removed and detached from the situation, she is like pouring her heart out, trying to make sense of what happened. And he's just kind of like, well, I said I'm sorry. I was honest with you that I changed my mind, and you know, I could only be honest about where I was at. And it's just there is no remorse, there's no emotion in what is in this from his side, and she is just like all wrapped in it. And you can see that she's trying to like she's doing this thing where she's bringing up like the most like horrible and hurtful things that he did. I think part of it is also trying to see like, is he going to have any kind of emotional reaction to any of this? Is there anything there? Does he care? Like, I think that's what she's trying to do. I don't think it's like, you know, obviously like some of these like the clubbing, the following Maria, like they're so painful, but it's like they are a little bit like tangential to like the core of what happened between them. But she's bringing these things up because it's like, is there anything? Like, does he care about how hurt she is? And from what I see, he's saying the words, he's like, of course I care about you, but you see there's no emotion in what he's saying. There's no emotion. She is so invested in it, and he is already detached. He's already removed from the situation. And I think that's the most painful part about it. That's the most painful thing, that it was real to her. It really was. Everything she said she meant. And he's like, well, it was real to me then. And it's like, listen, if it was real to you ever, this is not how you would treat her. If you ever cared about her, there would be something there outside of like, well, I said I'm sorry. Like, that's not what... When you hurt someone that you actually care about, when you hurt someone that you actually love, like, there is an actual emotional reaction, because it's so disturbing. I've hurt people that I've loved, and it's like, oh my God, like, I can't believe that I did that. And maybe I have a reason, maybe there's an explanation, but at the end of the day, like, to hurt someone that I care about, that I love, I'm not sitting there steely like that. I'm not sitting there like in that way. And to me, that said it all. To me, that said everything about what had transpired in their relationship. Are people allowed to change their mind? Sure. Yes. Fine. People are allowed to change their mind, but, you know, to Jenn's point, it's like, don't make promises if you know that you can change your mind that easily, right? Don't make those kinds of big promises. Don't say those types of words to someone. And like, to me, I'm so upset because honestly, like, you brought this up, Julie, like, yeah, like, I questioned Devin from the very beginning. I didn't like this man from the very beginning. There were a lot of things about him that it just rubbed me the wrong way, but because he didn't do anything directly horrible, it was like, oh, well, maybe I'll just like withhold my judgment and just kind of see how this all shakes out. But to be honest, what this all comes back to is, I think back to my main issue with him, night 1, night 2, was he had this false mythology, this false philosophy about authenticity. He had this idea that, you know, I am what I am, take it or leave it. I should be able to just say whatever I want to say. I should be able to be me, and nobody should criticize me. Like, that is an inherent good. If I'm able to be my authentic self, that is an inherent good, and I should be able to do that. And I really take issue with that point of view for many reasons, because at the end of the day, authenticity is not an acceptable standard for human interaction. Like, that is not an appropriate, that is not acceptable for that to be your only barometer of how I judge what is okay for me to do with another human being. Because we see, like, basically what he's saying is that, well, when I made all those promises to you, it was true for me, so it's okay that I said that. But that's not true, because you've got to think about how your words are going to impact another people. You can't just say, like, ooh, I'm feeling love right now, so I'll make all these promises of love to this person. No, you got to think about, how are those words going to impact that person? What is that person going to do with those words? What is that person going to feel, going to experience? What is going to happen if you make promises, you say things that are not going to be true later? You can't just say anything to someone just because, well, it was true for me. Like, that is not acceptable. When we are talking about the heart, we're talking about emotions, we're talking about love, we're talking about real deep partnership commitments to someone. You can't just say things. You got to think about what these words mean, and you got to think about, am I going to be able to hold this truth? Am I going to be able to hold this before I commit them and put them out there and make somebody else receive those words, and the impacts that come with receiving that kind of language from someone, the kinds of promises that he gave to Jenn. And he didn't think about that. Clearly, he didn't. He was just focused on, I want to be able to be my authentic self and just say my piece. And, like, that's the thing. Like, I see this happen time and time again. I see it happen time and time again when people think that, well, I was feeling it, so I just wanted to say it. I was feeling it, and so, yes, I changed my mind, but, you know, it was real then. It's like, well, you should have thought about it. You can't just say things. You should have thought about it. And you should have thought about the fact that if you are the type of person whose feelings change, you gotta take your time getting to that point with someone so that they don't make the mistake of jumping in with you when you're not going to be there at the bottom to catch them. And that's what he did. He let her jump. He let her jump, take that leap of faith, not knowing if he was going to be there at the bottom. And yeah, I fault him for it. Yes, I do. I think that it is irresponsible. It was irresponsible what he did with her heart, and it was irresponsible what he did with his words. And this is the end result of that it's a selfish mindset to think that I should be allowed to say whatever is on my mind. I should be able to say whatever I want. It is a very self-centered and myopic life philosophy, and I think we see the end result of that, which is that Jenn is broken from listening to him just say whatever whimsical thought comes into his mind, because he didn't think about how this could possibly end for her. He was only thinking about, well, I'm saying what's real for me. And I'm so frustrated. Like, I'm so frustrated that I ever pulled my punches for this person, because we see where it all ended. That care was only skin deep. That care was only skin deep.
You bring up so many good points about how Devin handled himself throughout the season and how that was a huge mirror to how he showed up with Jenn. This is my problem with the word authenticity, because authenticity is a buzzword that is super popular now. We want to be authentic. We want to be truthful. We want to stay true to our words. There is that, and there is also this, I think that when people conflate it to then mean I can hurt other people because my reality matters more, my truth matters more, then we forget about community, we forget about connection with others, we forget that we have a responsibility to others to really tend to that and care towards that. So when he threw that blanketed term of like, well, I needed to do what was best for me, my feelings changed, therefore I withdraw my care, that doesn't happen. I felt like Jenn made really good points of, we didn't have closure. We didn't get to have that ending conversation. What ended up happening was that you left me in the dark. You left me in the dust. I was looking for you and you were gone. That is so painful that he just absolutely was like, but I'm not that person anymore. I've changed. And she's like, well, I'm still that same person. How I kind of think it happened for him was that he maybe just got really wrapped up in the season. He wanted to win Jenn at all costs. He got her. Then he realized, oh my God, I don't really know if this is the person for me. I don't know if I want to be in a relationship with somebody that wants to get married. I think when he was talking about expectations, I mean, that whole freaking episode was so confusing. I could not find a through line. I could not find the thread that they were pulling at, because I was like, what are they talking about? Jenn is speaking about this and Devin is like convoluting it with like all of this. But I said this, we said this, we weren't going to talk about this on TV. He wasn't ready for what an engagement truly meant. Jenn was ready. She was engaged. She was ready to get married. She was ready to have kids. Devin realized, I don't know. Oof, actually, I don't even know if I really want to date her because she needs from me. I don't know if I can take care of her needs. I kind of want to have fun. Ooh, my boys that are like the runner-ups, they seem like they're having an amazing time. That's what I want to do. I want to have this fun. Jenn, this is a little bit difficult. This is a little bit hard. I'm not here for it.
So shocking to be with someone who is like saying that they love you, saying all these things, promising, committing all of these things, and then it's like turning off a faucet. It's like, okay, done, no more. In this scene between Devin and Jenn, there was no care there. The care was off, withdrawn. Like he was done being in that emotional space with her. And, you know, the idea that at any point he would say that he genuinely loved and cared about her, and then to kind of leave her hanging the way that he did, it does call into question everything that he said. It does call into question, like, did he mean it at any point? I don't know. He says that he did. He says that he felt that. But then again, it like comes back to like, bro, you got to think about your words. You got to think about it. Like, you got to really think about what it means. And you're right. Like, authenticity is a buzzword. And I love that you brought up that, like, it's like we have more responsibility when we come into an interaction with other people. Yes, of course, we want to be ourselves. This is important. It's important to be able to represent who you really are in your interactions with other people. And also, you gotta take care of the other people. Like, you can't just, I mean, it's like it goes back to like, don't yell fire in a crowded theater because other people can get hurt by what they interpret that means, right? If you yell fire in a crowded theater, people might like, you know, whatever, storm out and get hurt, blah, blah, all of that stuff. Like that is kind of what Devin did. He yelled something out in his relationship with Jenn, which is, I love you, like, I want to be with you forever. He like yelled it out without thinking about the way that would impact her. And, you know, we need to take responsibility for our words. Yeah. We need to increase the standard from just, let me tick, bro. Like I am what I am, take it or leave it. We got to increase those standards. Like, that is not an acceptable way to go into your relationships. It's just not acceptable. And because the way Jenn was broken, it all came down to Devin's that myopic focus on himself, and that self-focus on his own experience and what was true to him. And as soon as he was no longer, I guess, whatever, vibing on Jenn, he thinks it's his right to just withdraw everything that he did and leave her in the way that he did. And it's just not okay. It's not acceptable to treat somebody like that. And you know, I think back to that scene, I think it was last week, when he was like kind of having that whole like emotional breakdown over the fact that he had said he loved Jenn and Jenn hadn't said it back, and he was like feeling all of this like insecurity and this fear of not being chosen and all of that stuff. And in that scene, I think many of us probably watched that scene and were like, oh, so he really does care a lot about Jenn. Look how distraught he is. But the more I reflect back to that scene, I remember the thing that really upset me about it was the way he was kind of positioning it as, I don't deserve to feel this way. I shouldn't have to feel these negative emotions in my relationship with Jenn. And to me, what it felt like was he was very focused on the fact that it was hurtful for him to be in a relationship where he felt like he liked her more than she liked him. And I think that he was very focused on just, how do I correct that? as opposed to like thinking holistically about like what is happening in this relationship and what does Jenn need in this relationship, what is going to happen in this relationship, and thinking holistically about like, okay, in 2 weeks we'll know and I'll be able to tend to myself and self-soothe without putting this responsibility on Jenn to like fix my experience for me. And I do think like when I think back to that moment, it did feel like even though it was like about Jenn, there was something very self-focused about it. The way that Devin was positioning it, it felt like
me and my feelings.
There was something about it that felt that way. And, you know, it feels very consistent from episode 1 to now. Actually, that is something that feels so consistent about Devin. It's just there's such a focus on himself and his own experience. And I don't know. I don't want to say that I like was right, but like I feel like I really like said something about this person from the beginning, and like I actually wasn't surprised that it ended this way. Like it did feel consistent. Like these little moments that suggested to me that there was a kind of a self-focus in the way that he was pursuing his relationship with Jenn. Like, and so when it all went down this way, I don't know. I wasn't surprised, actually. It felt consistent to me. I think I wanted to believe that I was wrong and that Devin was going to really show up and be a great partner to Jenn. But it was actually a pretty consistent behavior from his part from the beginning to me.
You're right, because something I was thinking about with Devin was that I was hoping that he would realize what a prize that Jenn was and just really want to keep her and do what he could to keep her around. And that is a fallacy that you and I stepped into, just like with Jenn. We fell for the potential and not like the pattern, because the pattern is truly what's revealing. The pattern is, this is who I am, because history doesn't repeat, but it often rhymes. And he had potential of being this guy that was like, my God, I love you and I'm here for you and I'm doing all of these things for you. But really, if you look at the undercurrent of, like, I felt like last night was so revealing of, oh, I see Jenn now. This is a girl that loves hard. That's what she meant by ferocious love. I think that she really meant, I want to, because when she kept saying, I want to fight for my relationship, I was mistaking it with, she wants to fight for like this energetic waviness in a relationship. I think that's an attractant for her, but really she means, I'm gonna be in this relationship until death do us part. I mean what I'm saying. When you commit to me, I am fighting for you. That's what she's saying. Yeah. So I felt like, oh, I see Jenn now, and then I see Devin, and I'm like, oh, now I see Devin. This is a guy that is masquerading his insecurities as all of this bravado, and he is trying to win. I kind of see like every episode and how it like ladders up. I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Were you surprised that Devin turned out this way? Were you surprised that he broke up with Jenn on a 15-minute phone call and then ghosted her for the next month and then only showed up on stage to get airtime? Let us know in the comments down below. And we usually say be nice. In this moment, you can be honest. We look forward to seeing your unfiltered thoughts.
Well, as we are thinking of boycotting this show, allow us to take a moment and introduce you to the sponsor of today's video, Dipsea. When I'm looking for truly swoon-worthy romance, personally I love turning to fiction, and my go-to place for seriously sizzling stories is Dipsea.
Dipsea is a female-founded, steamy audiobook app where romance comes alive. Their app has over 1,000 spicy audiobooks, all crafted by a team of professional writers and narrators whose voices completely draw you in. Whether you're dreaming of the one that got away, a fae royal, or a mysterious Scottish sailor, you'll find a character to fall for. Dipsea's app is intuitive and easy to explore and discover every romantic genre out there, from contemporary, historical, dark, sports, western, romantasy, sapphic, and beyond. Fresh new chapters are added each week for you to check out.
For listeners of the show, Dipsea is offering an extended 30-day free trial when you go to dipseastories.com/here-to-find-love. That's 30 days of full access for free when you go to dipseastories.com/here-to-find-love. dipseastories.com/here-to-find-love. The link is in the description, and thank you again to Dipsea for offering this special deal to our HTFL audience. Let's get into Marcus, because I feel like we've been really talking all about the finale and about what happened with Jenn and Devin, but I do think we should take a step and talk about the Marcus breakup as well, because there was actually a lot going on in that dynamic too. And I think it was actually an interesting dating conversation. So the Jenn and Marcus of it all ended pretty simply. I mean, you know, he met her family, but he was uncertain about if he wanted to propose to her. So they were just like, okay, I don't know why we're talking to you. I don't know what the point of this is. And so for their final date between Jenn and Marcus, Jenn just skips the let's smile and go on a nice adventure date, and she just goes straight to his room to have a conversation. And, you know, she basically is like, the proposal is tomorrow. What, are you going to realize that you love me and want to marry me like today on this date, and then tomorrow you'll be ready to propose? Like, it's like we're out of time. And Marcus kind of breaks down, he's crying, he's saying all this stuff of like, he's like so confused and he doesn't know why he's so confused about it, and he's trying really hard. He wants to, one thing that I kept hearing him say is he is trying for Jenn, he wants to get there for Jenn, and I kept thinking, well, shouldn't you want to get there for yourself because you think she's bomb? Like, you know, it sounded like something as if it's like an obligation for him to like love her, as opposed to something that like would happen organically. This thing that he said, like, I'm afraid to like let a good woman go, it all sounded to me like, I don't like you that much. I think I should like you. I don't want to let you down. I don't want to let the story down. But like, it sounded to me like all along, like he just isn't actually that into her. And Jenn clocks it. Eventually he kind of like does say like, I do love you. He kind of like slips it out, but it feels hollow after everything, because if it were true, like your I love you wouldn't feel like, oh God, it's so fraught, and I feel like I don't know how I feel, but I think I do love you, question mark. Jenn catches that, and she's just basically like, this is not how it's supposed to feel, and so I need to end it. It brought up a lot of questions for me, because I loved how Jenn handled the situation. I think that Jenn was very shrewd to just identify that, yes, he finally said the words that she was like wanting to hear so badly from him, but it didn't feel right. And she even says this, I think, later to the camera, that like at the end of the day, like she doesn't want to feel this way in her marriage with the person that she's going to be with forever, is what she says. And it reminded me, Julie, of what you and I were talking about last week, of like the Marcus relationship. There's something very juicy and exciting and romantic about the idea of like eventually she'll like melt his cold heart, but like that's not actually what you want in a marriage. You don't want to have to be constantly questioning whether your husband loves you and wants to be there. And I think she realized that, and it all clicked into place for her, that actually doesn't matter what he says at this point, this is just not the way I want to feel in my relationship. The person that I'm going to be with forever, it's not supposed to feel this way, and so I need to end it. And what maturity and growth for her to really identify that, to kind of see through the myth and the fairy tale romance of it all, to see through that and to just be like, oh wait, no, in real life, this isn't it. I was actually really proud of her. Marcus, on the other hand, I'm curious what you think, Julie, of like why Marcus was like in this state. He kept saying that thing of like, I'm afraid to let a good woman go. And like, how many times have women heard this from a man who's unavailable, not actually showing up into the relationship, but saying something like, I'm afraid to let you go?
He's just very self-centered. He's extremely self-centered. And you know, I'd spoken about this last episode, and I saw some really beautiful comments on the last video where they were like, oh my gosh, I relate to the way that Julie has talked about her dating story. Putting myself in a Jenn's shoes. You know, I remember once I broke up with a partner. I don't know if I ever told you this, Kelly, but when I broke up with him, he told me, I want to be with you even if you're not happy. because that's how much he wanted to be with me. It was an extremely enlightening comment. It kind of brought up a lot of the self-absorption. Jenn made another comment where she was like, I have been with people where their emotions dictated the flow of the relationship, which is just a case of making yourself smaller, minimizing your needs. There's something about Marcus that feels incredibly self-centered. I feel like because he's not able to pull from his own emotional reservoir of his vulnerability, his connection to himself, like all of these really lovely, beautiful emotions that Jenn, it takes time for her to dive into it, but when she's in it, she is in an ocean of like this resource. Like she is able to really feel this connection with someone, and she's able to fight for it, and she's able to, sink into it. Marcus doesn't have that same connection. So I feel like it was a little bit exploitative. Like he was, I don't know if I want to be with you, but I like how you make me feel. I like how you validate me. I like how you are telling me that you love me. I like that you are seeing something in me that I am trying to see in myself. The entire season, I thought he was he was like auditioning to be the Bachelor. And I still think there was an element of that. But at the end, when he said, I still want to fight with you and I still want to be here for you, it did kind of click into place. Oh, this is a man that he just kind of cares more about what she's giving him versus what he's giving her. And that was the really painful crux of it. I've dated men like this, and it never works out the way that you think it's going to work out. I said this before in the last episode. Let me say it again to anyone watching the video. If you are struggling with this, you can only meet someone as deeply as they've met themselves. And if you're on this bridge together and you're able to walk here, but they can only walk here, at some point you're going to have to start carrying them if you want to go further. And that's exactly what happens in relationships like this. You're going to carry them, and that's not a weight that you want to carry. It's heavy and it's really hard, and I have been there. I have gotten out of those relationships. That is not a pattern that I am thankful that I step into anymore. But it took time, and it took breakups like what happened with Marcus, even what happened with Devin, where it's a little bit like, oh my gosh, I now know what it means for somebody to be emotionally ready. So Marcus can get off the stage, never go back, don't go on Bachelor in Paradise. I do not want to see this man on TV. Like, get him out of here.
Oh my gosh. Wow, that was so beautifully said. I was like very touched by like 18 things you said that like 1 minute. But oh my gosh. This is a little bit different from maybe what you were experiencing in that relationship, but I do feel like I hear this from men often, where it's like they'll be describing a woman that they're not actually willing to commit to, but they still kind of want to keep her in their orbit or like keep her tethered to you. When Marcus said, I'm afraid to let a good woman go, he kept saying things like along those lines of basically like, I recognize that you're great and I don't want to lose you, but it's not the same as saying like, I actually love you and care about you and like want to be with you. It's just more from this place of, it's almost like a possessiveness. It's like, I don't like you, I don't want to commit to you, but I do want you to still be mine. I still want you to be committed to me. And, you know, I think it comes from a place of, like you were saying, it's like he likes what he's getting from Jenn. He likes the attention, the affection, the care, the intimacy. And, you know, I think when I hear this, it's like sometimes there is like a genuine, like there is something genuine of like, you know, I like this girl, I do want her in my life, but it's like they aren't actually meaningfully thinking about what she might need. They're only focused on what they get from her and maintaining access to that. And I think that's really what was going on with Marcus, right? It's like Marcus wasn't thinking about what Jenn needed in this relationship, right? Like he kept saying stuff like, I don't know why I'm so confused. I think I'm putting too much pressure on myself. Like he was saying all of this stuff about his own internal narrative. And all I'm thinking is like, in that moment, it was like the proposal is the next day. You're still talking about like your confusion. You're talking about like, you know, I'm trying, like I want to make this work. But like, you're not thinking about it from her point of view. What do you want her to do with that? Like, what is she supposed to do? Just sitting there listening to you say you're trying to love her. But like, she needs to make a decision tomorrow. Like, practically speaking, she needs what is she going to do with this information? What is she going to do in this situation? He's not actually empathizing with her. He's not actually thinking about her and what she needs. He's just kind of in his own head thinking about how he doesn't want to lose her, doesn't want to lose access to her, but he's not actually thinking about, like, does she want to be in this kind of relationship? What does she need out of a relationship? Is this going to be actually satisfying to her? Is this going to be something that will feel good for her to be in? You're sticking around, but it's like, and you're keeping her tethered to you. You don't want to lose her, but it's like, you know, she needs something out of this relationship. And so I feel like when I hear men saying stuff like this, like, I'm afraid to let a good woman go, like, I don't want to lose you, like, but they're not actually taking the steps to commit and take care of that woman, to me it does come down to, like you said, like a bit of a selfishness and a little bit of like a possessiveness. It's somewhere in the mix of that. And, you know, in a way it's almost like Devin. It feels like both Devin and Marcus were both doing the same thing, which is just kind of like thinking about themselves, thinking about their own experience, like what they get from Jenn. But I don't feel like either of them were really thinking about her and what she actually needed from them. I think they're both just thinking about like what they're getting from Jenn. And I'm glad that she kind of picked up on that and realized that, at least with the Marcus relationship, she did realize, like, this is not satisfying me. This is not fulfilling me. And I need to go because this is all about you. And I can't be in a relationship that is just all about you and your emotions and letting your emotions dictate the relationship. I really loved the way you put it of like this bridge that you're both on. And it's like, if one person can only go so far, that means you're going to have to carry them the rest of the way for the relationship to move forward. And gosh, yeah, that is exactly what this dynamic really felt like. Honestly, it's like kind of ironic to me that both Marcus and Devin kept framing it as, I know what her expectations are in a relationship and I couldn't meet those standards. Like, they kept framing it in that way, like, well, she had these standards that I couldn't meet, and so I had to, that's why I couldn't lean into the relationship. But, and it's like kind of making it seem like, oh yeah, I did care about her. I knew what she wanted. I was thinking about her all along. But in reality, it's like her standard is not like this super wild high standard. Her standard is just commitment. Like, show up into the relationship. Like,
be a good
be
guy.
there.
Yeah.
Like, it's like that's her standard. So when they say like they can't meet her expectations, all I'm hearing is, you know, she wants someone who actually cares about her, and I don't. Like, that's all I'm hearing. You want someone who cares about you. I don't actually care. And, you know, they can phrase it however they want, but I really think it just boils down to that. I just think that the care was not there for both Marcus and Devin. And if it wasn't there, then I just feel like you shouldn't have kept this woman attached to you. You shouldn't have been roping her into like a deeper and deeper emotional relationship with you, using your words to make her think that you actually care about her the way she wants, when in reality, you are not there. You didn't actually care. And so you shouldn't have done this. Like, that's kind of how I feel, honestly, about both Marcus and Devin at this point. It just, the care wasn't there, and they shouldn't have been roping her in the way that they did.
You put it super well in terms of just reading Marcus to filth and the way that he demonstrated like his ability to show up in a relationship. She was able to break the pattern with Marcus, but like Devin was a really insidious version of it. You know, like he was truly the one that was doing all of the things that Marcus, at least Marcus was like a little bit honest about it. He was like, I have reservations. I'm not totally sure, but I want to keep you. Devin was doing that behind the scenes. So they just are very much cut from the same cloth. Something also too, when Jenn was on the stage talking to Marcus, you could tell she was just over it. She was just like saying stuff like, oh yeah, like I respect you, and the relationship was what it was, because she was like, let's get it done. I'm so over my stuff being on TV. I'm so over rehashing something, and honestly, I broke up with you 4 months ago. My fiance and I just broke up, and I that's my bigger heartbreak. I don't really care about this relationship right now. I just need to put it away. And I noticed Marcus was kind of saying stuff that he was just reeling out a script, and Jesse would try to interject to direct it, and I was like, we don't need this. This isn't important right now.
One thing that Marcus did in this little after the final rose segment that kind of grossed me out a little bit was he kind of felt the need to emphasize that, like, they both mutually came to the conclusion that things needed to end, which, at least from what we saw, wasn't true, right? Jenn ended it. Marcus was still crying and trying to, like, not lose a good woman, and he was still trying to, like, maintain, like, possess her and maintain access to her, even at the expense of her, what she needed, like, even at the expense of her well-being, her happy ending. He was still trying to maintain his access to her, even though he was not emotionally there, not willing to emotionally commit to her. So he made it seem like, oh, well, like, I knew I had to get out of your way. But that wasn't true. He didn't get out of her way. She was like, get out of my way. She moved him to the side. He made it seem like it was like a mutual thing. And I was like, why are you making it seem like that? And I was just like a little, I don't know, I was just annoyed by that way. And I'm glad you're right that Jenn was just like, whatever. Like,
you could tell she was just like,
whatever.
Yeah. I'm just saying things to get him off the stage. Her energy was just off. As soon as she got on the stage, I was like, I've never seen her face like this. When she smiles, it takes over her entire face. But she was a little bit like, just waiting for the needle to drop a little bit.
Yeah, totally. I mean, yeah. I'm with you that it's so sad that this was her final two. I'm kind of, honestly, I'm like a little, even those other guys up there, they were all like, we're here to support Devin and Marcus. I'm like, huh? What? They're your brothers? These guys? I was like...
Jonathan is like giving me the ick on Instagram. He's doing all of these super clout chase videos where he is like pretending he's on the beach. I'm like over every single man that's on her show.
I'm kind of over them. I'm not really enjoying anyone's behavior. I was just like,
I do find one silver lining. There's not a lot, but Rachel Recchia, I do think her and Jenn will have a bond because Rachel understands what it's like to be publicly humiliated by the show.
Yeah.
And maybe, I mean, I hope that she doesn't decide to do BIP at all, Rachel and Jenn, because when Rachel was on BIP, that was also like incredibly difficult to watch. Just how embarrassing it was for all of these guys in her season to like not want her back. Kind of like a little bit of retaliation. I want them to have no part of it. I'm just like hoping.
No, you're right.
To stop with the show. Yeah.
I hated seeing Rachel on Bachelor in Paradise, and I definitely do not want to see Jenn there. I swear I will lose my shit if this show tries to mess with Jenn anymore. Like, I will lose it. It is just, she just deserves so much more. I'm so excited for her to just kind of move on from this experience and just move on from it. Like, I'm still so, like, emotionally, like, like, upset by it. And also, like, I know that she is going to process it, figure it out, and, like, make sense of all of this stuff that happened. And, you know, I don't want to end on, like, some hollow, like, positivity BS, because it was so frustrating watching Jesse do that. I just hate, I don't know, that strong woman stuff, like, really was just so frustrating. All I'll say is that, you know, Jenn's season, minus this horrendous ending, like, her actual story, like, the story of what is going on within her and the journey that she is on, is a beautiful one. Her actual, like, emotional journey that she has been on, the one that she is still on and still, you know, growing and exploring and navigating, like, it is a beautiful, powerful journey that I'm happy that we got, like, a little window into her universe and into her world. I feel like it really opened up a lot of conversations that helped us, you know, think about our own relationships and think about the way in which we can repeat patterns and try to break patterns in our relationships. So in that sense, like, there was a lot that we got out of not this fucking show, but, you know, from Jenn. Like, Jenn really did, I think she did an amazing job as a Bachelorette. And, you know, you said this, but, like, she was really invested in the process. Like, her vulnerability was fully on display. This person who struggles with emotions and struggles to go there emotionally, she went there. And honestly, that's cool. It was cool to see her open up and, like, really bare her heart. And even though it didn't work out for her here, like, I am very, like, moved and happy to have known Jenn and get this little window into Jenn.
Yeah, she cared so much about it, so deeply, and it's truly I am just like super happy that she had an opportunity to take this chance, and she has the support of a lot of people that were able to witness her vulnerability in real time. You know, for somebody who isn't, she describes herself as not being very emotionally connected. I think that she has had one of the most vulnerable experiences the show has ever seen. Something beautiful that she was also able to do was really present the Vietnamese experience on TV, and it was really lovely to see her mom and her auntie and her brother all on TV together, and to see her mom and Jenn have this like really, I think that the way that they were speaking is like how I speak to my mom, and how I know a lot of my friends speak to their parents. When your parent speaks a totally different language, you speak English, you know a little bit of Vietnamese or another language, and then you're just like mixing it all together. It just felt very real. Jen's Vietnamese is not the best, which is kind of like mine. She was like when she was talking, I just like could hear it. I'm like, oh man, I totally understand. I loved the skepticism and the way that they stood really strong in their protection of Jenn, especially the brother. I think the brother James was so smart, and he was just so like clocking every single guy for exactly what it was. Of Devin, he was like, I don't know, this guy just seems a little bit like, he seems positive, but they haven't had enough time, so I don't know if I trust him. And then with Marcus, he was like, this guy is not ready, and he just keeps talking like this, and he can't give me an answer. But I love my sister, and I trust my sister, and I want to support my sister. So it was such a beautiful, complex family experience to bring on TV. I felt like it was the most real.
It was like really nice to see her and her family. I love that her mom is just so skeptical, like of each guy.
So over
she just and I also really liked seeing the brother. Like clearly the brother knows Jenn so well, James, and I think he, you know, their moment I thought was really beautiful. I did like tear up a little bit watching them like, you know, talk to each other when Jenn was like, you know, your opinion like matters more to me than anyone else, and you know, it was really beautiful to watch. I just really liked seeing this whole family experience, and that was one thing that I was appreciative of. But it's like, I'm so frustrated. I almost I'm like, protect them all, get them off of this damn show. Like it's just like, the other half of me was like, ugh, this show doesn't even deserve them. And they're like,
I know,
sweet like family moments. I was like, ugh, but I was happy to see it.
I was happy to see it too, and I think it was beautiful. I am super proud of Jenn being able to show the Vietnamese diaspora on TV, and just being so courageous with being so against the grain, being, you know, physically intimate with somebody on TV. It's just so against how especially Vietnamese culture perceives that type of like PDA. So it was also really courageous for Jenn to be like, I just want to do it, and it's super fun, and it like really means a lot to me. I am hoping and praying that she is going to be like really protected in this next stage of her journey, that she has amazing friends to rally around her, that her family comes together and just really gets to know a deeper version of her, and she gets to meet men that see her worth and connect to that and uplift it, and they can make all of these beautiful things together and really co-create a future that feels true for the both of them. I can totally see that in her future. It's, you know, like I don't usually follow a lot of people after the show, and I'm usually just like, I don't know if they're gonna make it after the show. But I will say this, with Jenn, I feel 1,000% confident this girl's gonna be okay. She's gonna be more than okay. She's gonna absolutely come out of this so much better, so much more connected to herself, and really ascended in like the most beautiful ways.
I'm excited to see what Jenn's next chapter looks like. And you know what? I think that right now I'm still simmering in my anger over what happened. I'm sure she's gonna simmer in her anger, as she should. Like, I think she should be just like devastated by what happened. Just like absolutely like I think she's got to feel through all of those emotions, because I mean, that's like traumatizing, honestly. Like it was like she was like ripping open a new wound, like in that scene, watching that proposal. And I think she's gonna need to, you know, I think she she deserves to be angry. She deserves to be upset. That rage, that frustration, that like disappointment, like I'm excited to see that from Jenn too, and how I'm sure that she will, as she moves on to her Dancing with the Stars and all that other stuff that she's going to move on to do. I know that she's also going to show us both sides of the coin of both the kind of grief and aftermath of all of this, and also, you know, what it looks like to move on from that. And I'm excited for both of them, and I'm going to be angry right alongside her.
Absolutely. I think that the path that she's walking is it's a really good path that she's on, and I would just encourage her to continue to like trust herself and her choices.
Yeah, there's no real way to like neatly wrap this up, tie it up with a bow, because I think there's just still so many emotions that we're going to continue to feel around this finale. And like, I feel like I'm going to still be processing this, to be honest. Like, this is the morning after and we're just reacting off the cuff, and I feel like I'm going to still, as I think more about it, like the more I think about it, the more frustrated I get. So honestly, I don't even want to try to tie it up with a bow, because I just feel like there's more to unpack, and I know there's going to be a lot of dialogue around the way the season ended, and I'm looking forward to it, because there was something really just like wrong about how this season all went down. And there were lots of gems, there were lots of wonderful moments that we got from the season and from Jenn's story. And also I'm just so disturbed about it. Like, every time I think back to Jenn's face on that stage, something feels so just like so wrong about it all. Let us know down below in the comments your final thoughts on the season and how it all went down, what you think about how Jenn and Marcus broke up, what you think about Devin and what happened with his story with Jenn. I also wanted to say, like, thank you guys all so much for all of your support this season and for being here and leaving all your thoughts and comments and DMs and just rallying around HTFL. It's been so meaningful. Your support is so meaningful, and we are just so happy that you're here, so happy to be having these conversations. And even though this season ended so horrendously, just horribly, we do have a lot of gratitude for you all and for this community and the conversations that we're able to have here. So thank you all for being here. Come follow us on Instagram to see what we're up to next, and we love you all. We will see you soon.
Bye, guys.
Bye.